Trader Joe's, a very famous US grocery store, which some of you may have heard of in your travels there, or you may have just heard of in your readings about its business journey. There's some excellent books around Trader Joe's, in particular by the guy who is Joe. Well, I found out they pay their suppliers essentially C.O.D, cash on delivery. And you might think, why on earth would a grocery store do C.O.D that's of that size? Trader Joe's does in excess of $20 billion in revenue a year. It isn't publicly accessible information, it's a privately owned company, but from interviews and from the things I've read, it's believed that they do over $20 billion in revenue a year. You would think a business like that would have sufficient clout with its suppliers to avoid having to do COD, and if anything, string them out to 90 days like good old Australian grocery stores do. Thanks Coles and Woolworths, 90 days plus. Why on earth would they do that? Are they stupid? Are they just hyper generous? What's the strategy? Well, what are the leverage points? Because they don't actually disclose the reasons why they do it, but I'm going to hypothesize the reasons why they do it. And if you've watched some of our videos in the past, I'm a huge believer that if you're a good client to your suppliers, they will be an excellent supplier to you and to us as a business. And how do you be an excellent client to one of your suppliers? One of them is paying them in the time frame that they're expected to be paid based on their terms. But what if you took that one step further? What if you go to your supplier, hey, you're willing to give me 30-day terms. What if I paid you in 7 days? Would you give me a discount? What if I paid you COD? Would you give me a discount? All of a sudden, they've gone from, hey, I'm selling a whole bunch of product to somebody who's not paying me for 30, 60, 90 days, to somebody who's willing to pay me at the moment the product gets delivered. That's a very different financial equation for me as a supplier to Trader Joe's. So what would I be willing to do? If I put my Trader Joe cap on, and I'm sure they sell caps of Trader Joe, if I was to put my Trader Joe cap on, what's the reason I would do this and what are my leverage points? Firstly, clearly it's price of my suppliers. If I'm willing to pay you that quickly, I'm probably going to get a better price, which means if I get a better price, I'm willing to pass on a better price to my customers, which gives me more revenue. And if I'm getting more revenue and if I'm selling more product, what is happening to my stock? I am cycling through my stock quicker. My stock turns are a lot quicker and occur a lot more frequently. Also, what do you think the supplier is willing to do? I think they're willing to do smaller shipments rather than do some big bulk order because of the magnitude of the work being done and the magnitude of how much risk there is. Rather than doing small incremental deliveries, they do one big delivery. But for Trader Joe's, it's probably far better to have incremental, speedy deliveries because it means they don't need to carry as much stock. So all of a sudden the equation for them is lower cost, which can make them more competitive or have greater margin. And also they can carry less stock because the supplier is willing to bend to them further because they're giving them COD and being a very good client to their supplier. So do I think they're just doing it out of generosity? No. I do think there is an element of altruistic nature to it though, because I think they could probably get the same things that they get even if they paid in say 7 or 14 days for the industry that they're in. But there's an altruistic nature to it, but also there's clearly a business benefit. So in your business, what can you do for your suppliers that make you a more appealing client to deal with, that can help potentially get better price, better leverage in the relationship, more out of the relationship, not just a transactional relationship of here's my widget, here's the price, and I'll deliver it to you when I get to it. Hope you enjoyed that video. And as always, it's not just about keeping the money in the pocket, it's also about spending the money quicker so you can create more money for tomorrow.